don't say a word. Just watch.
Hello, welcome to the podcast of Kabbalah Vision, the connection point between the order of the invisible world and our souls. I am Luri, your guide who will accompany you on this journey of wisdom today. Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm Luri, and today we are pushing open those heavy waterlogged doors of the Ark.
Right into the mud.
Exactly. Stepping right out into the mud of a brand new world. We're going to be looking exclusively at Genesis chapter 9, but we're viewing it entirely through the prism of the Zohar.
And it's a very different view than the standard Sunday school narrative. It's darker, it's much more complex, and it deals with the actual mechanics of how divine light settles, or frankly, how it fails to settle into reality after a massive catastrophe.
Yeah, and before we jump in, just a quick nod to where we are. We know you, the listener, have already done your homework. You know your Sephirot from your Partsufim.
You definitely do.
Right, you know that when we talk about light and vessels, we aren't talking about, home decor. So per your specific request, we are skipping the Kabbalah 101 definitions today.
Yeah, we aren't going to stop and explain what Shezed or Grivra are.
Right. We're assuming you know the architecture, so we can just focus on the Zohar's cryptic, totally fascinating take on the aftermath of the flood. Because the request we got from you guys was really specific. You wanted to know what the Zohar is actually saying about the Rainbow Covenant, Noah's weird mistake with the vineyard, and the spiritual archetypes of his three sons.
And honestly, when you look at the source material, the Zohar's answers to those questions completely reframe the narrative.
Oh, totally.
It turns this simple story about a survivor planting a garden into a metaphysical drama about a failed attempt to fix the entire world.
Yeah, it's not just a Bible story. It's really a story about the physics of spiritual energy, the danger of high-voltage divinity.
It's about the difference between insulation and exposure, and how the quote-unquote righteous man might not have been as effective as we tend to think.
Okay, let's start right there. The waters of Noah. We have to start with the flood itself, or rather, how the Zohar completely reframes the responsibility for it. There is this linguistic mystery that the Zohar latches onto.
Right, from the Vayikra commentary.
Yeah, source 26. In the Torah, it's usually called the waters of the flood. But then you look at the prophet Isaiah, chapter 54, and he calls it the waters of Noah, Meinoch.
Which is a jarring shift. It sounds like an indictment.
It sounds exactly like a blame game. I mean, imagine a hurricane destroys a city, and the news starts calling it the waters of the weatherman. Why does the prophet name the destruction after the sole survivor?
The Zohar tackles this head on. It says the waters are named after Noah because, on a spiritual level, he caused them.
Wow.
Or, perhaps more accurately, he allowed them to happen.
That is such a heavy charge, because the text explicitly calls him a righteous man in his generation. How does the Zohar reconcile that with blaming him for the literal apocalypse?
By comparing him directly to Moses. Think about the dynamic. When God tells Moses he's going to destroy the Israelites after the golden calf, what does Moses do?
He argues.
Exactly, he argues. He puts himself on the line. He says, blot me out of your book if you destroy them. He actively forces the attribute of mercy to awaken.
Yeah.
But Noah
gets the blueprints, builds a boat, and packs a lunch.
Yeah, Noah just accepts the decree.
Yeah.
The Zohar points out that Noah was hidden in the ark. He saved himself. And because he didn't argue, because he didn't demand mercy for the world, the waters literally bear his name. They are his waters because his silence allowed them to fall.
So his righteousness was just kind of insular.
It was a fur coat righteousness. It kept him warm, but it didn't heat the room. The Zohar identifies Noah with the Sephirot of Yesod, the foundation. And Yesod is supposed to be the funnel, right? The connector that channels energy down to Malchut, the kingdom, which is us, the earth.
But if the foundation is locked inside a box...
Then the entire structure above it collapses. That's the tragedy. The Zohar says that during the destruction of Sodom, there was a mingling of judgment and mercy. Zer Anpin was involved. God debated Abraham.
Right.
But the flood, that was pure Elohim, pure judgment. The world was wiped clean because the foundation Noah didn't expand to protect it. He just preserved the seed.
Okay, so the water recedes, the ark opens, and Noah steps out. And he's carrying the weight of this passive survival. This brings us to the first major sign of the new order, which is the rainbow, the Kishet.
The famous rainbow.
Right. And culturally, we see the rainbow as this hallmark moment, like, I promise not to drown you again. It's reassuring.
But if you read the Zohar carefully, specifically Parashat Pinchas and Beshalach the rainbow, is actually terrifying.
Terrifying. I mean, that seems like a stretch. It's pretty colors in the sky.
Well, it's not just refracted light to the Zohar. It is a visual revelation of the Shekhinah, the diviner presence, in a visible form. And the Zohar issues a very strict warning. It says, whoever gazes upon the rainbow is as though he gazes upon the Shekhinah.
And we know from essentially every Kabbalistic text that gazing directly at the divine machinery is a really bad idea.
It's terrible.
It's like staring at the sun or into a nuclear core.
Precisely. It suggests that when you see a rainbow, you are seeing the system of judgment and mercy totally exposed. You are seeing the mechanism of how God is managing the world nakedly. The Zohar actually says this sign appears when the world deserves destruction. The world is guilty, judgment is ready to fire, but the Shekhinah steps in to remember the covenant.
So it's not a happy birthday card, it's a ceasefire flag.
Yeah, it's a sign that things are incredibly precarious. It is beautiful, yes, but it's the beauty of a weapon that has been temporarily hung on the wall.
Let's talk about the colors, because the Zohar gets very specific here, and this is where I think that physics aspect really comes in. It describes the rainbow as Malchut, the feminine aspect, the kingdom wearing the apparel of the patriarchs.
Right, because Malchut itself has no color of its own. It's like a mirror, or the moon. It only reflects what is given to it. So when we see the rainbow, we are seeing the upper Sephirot, the raw divine attributes, clothing the Shekhinah to make her visible.
But the color mapping in Source 43, this is Parashat Pinchas, is really surprising. Because if you know your standard color associations, you usually think Abraham is white or silver for kindness and water. But the Zohar completely flips the script here.
It does, and it's quite unique to this specific passage. The Zohar links Abraham, who is cheesed or mercy, to the color green.
Green, which is usually associated with Tiferet, the central column. Why green for Abraham here?
The Zohar here is focusing heavily on the aspect of growth. Think of green as vitality, the verdant color of life spreading outwards. Abraham was the first to spread the concept of monotheism. So here he represents the green light of growth and renewal.
That makes sense.
And then it links Isaac Gevurah, judgment to red.
Okay, that one tracks perfectly. Red, fire, blood, judgment.
Exactly. And then it links Jacob Tiferet to white.
So we have green, red, and white.
The Zohar says Malchut puts on these colors the garments of the fathers to appear in the world. It is a synthesis of the right, left, and center columns.
I want to read this detail from the source just because the imagery is so vivid. It says, the raiment of Abraham is green, red is Isaac, white is the fine garment of Jacob. It almost sounds like the Shekhinah is putting on armor made of her ancestors to protect the world from the floodwaters returning.
That is a beautiful way to put it. It functions as a protective shield. But again, the warning remains. Source 17 in Beshalach reminds us, do not stare at it. Do not analyze it while it's happening.
Why, though? What actually happens if you stare? Is it just about respect?
It's about safety. You are bypassing the filter. You're trying to access the essence without the proper preparation. It represents a spiritual intensity that our human eyes just aren't meant to process.
Right.
It's the king's bow hung up in the sky, turned away from us. The curve faces up, not down at us. But it is still a weapon of judgment that has been paused. To stare at it is to show a complete lack of reverence for the danger we are actively in.
Okay, so Noah sees this sign. He sees the green, red, and white armor of God. He offers the sacrifices, and then he goes back to work. And this is exactly where the story takes a super weird turn. The text says Noah, the tiller of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard.
And immediately he drank of the wine and was drunk.
Okay, help me out here. On the surface, he's just a guy who survived the apocalypse. Maybe he's deeply traumatized. Maybe he just needs a drink. But the Zohar seems to think there's a much deeper, almost messianic motive happening here. Noah wasn't just thirsty, was he?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
If you think Noah was just looking for a happy hour, you miss the entire point of the Zohar in Parashat Noach. The Zohar suggests Noah was attempting a massive spiritual rectification, a Tikkun. He was actively trying to fix Adam's sin.
Connect those dots for us. How does planting a vineyard fix the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden?
Because according to the Zohar, and this is actually a pretty widespread Kabbalistic view, the fruit of the tree of knowledge wasn't an apple, it wasn't a fig, it was a grape, it was the vine.
Ah, so Adam sinned by consuming the grape or the wine of knowledge before he was ready.
Exactly, before he could sanctify it. Adam engaged with the realm of duality, good and evil, without the proper boundaries. He essentially drank the wine of wisdom raw. So Noah thinks, okay, the world has been washed clean, the slate is wiped, I am the new Adam, I am going to plant the vine, the very root of the problem, and I am going to use it for holiness. Going to fix what Adam broke.
He wanted to enter the Holy of Holies, so to speak. He wanted to finish the job of history right then and there.
He wanted to access the lights of the left column. Remember, in Kabbalah, wine corresponds to the left. Gevurah, wisdom, burning intensity. Water is the right, mercy. Noah wanted to drink the wine, access that intense burning wisdom of God, and synthesize it within himself.
But it went wrong.
Catastrophically wrong. The text says he drank of the wine and was drunk. Kabbalistically, getting drunk means he accessed those high-voltage lights of the left column, but he didn't have the stream, the massacre, or the capacity to actually hold them. He got overloaded.
It's like plugging a 12-volt appliance into a high-tension power line.
And the appliance just exploded. The source material says he was uncovered within his tent.
Uncovered sounds like shame, but in this context,
it means he lost his spiritual covering. He exposed the essence without the proper vessel. Instead of sanctifying Malchut, which is often symbolized by the tent, he became completely overwhelmed by the energy. He brought a form of death or disconnection right back into the world immediately after it had been cleansed.
It's so tragic. He tried to reach too high, too fast. He tried to do the work of the Messiah before the world or even he himself was ready.
And that failure leads directly to the incident with his sons. And this is where the Zohar gives us a totally fascinating psychological and spiritual breakdown of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Because if Noah's the foundation that failed, his sons are the walls that have to deal with the fallout.
Yeah, these aren't just three biological brothers bickering in a tent. They are archetypes.
They are the three pillars of the Sephirot re-emerging in humanity to pick up the pieces. The Zohar states this super clearly. Shem represents the right column. Chizzed, mercy.
Which totally makes sense. He's the ancestor of Abraham, who we just established as the green light of growth and mercy.
Exactly. Japheth represents the central column. Tipheret, beauty. The Zohar even associates him with the color purple, which is a mix of red and blue, symbolizing balance.
And then there's Ham, the supposed villain of the story.
Ham represents the left column. Gevurah, judgment, distinct separation. And this perfectly explains the incident in the tent.
When Ham sees his father's nakedness, we usually read this as a gross violation of privacy or something worse. But spiritualize it for us. What did Ham actually see?
Ham, representing the left column, is naturally attracted to the naked spiritual essence. The left side is all about analysis, dissection, peeling back the layers. Ham sees the exposure caused by the wine, which, remember, is also left energy, and he engages with it improperly.
So he sees the spiritual reactor core exposed because Noah's shielding failed.
Instead of covering it up, he stares. Or worse, the Zohar interprets this as the left side trying to cut off or separate the flow of sanctity. It's an act of spiritual rebellion. He isn't covering the vulnerability. He's exploiting it. He wants to possess that raw power for himself.
Whereas Shem and Japheth, the right and center, do something very specific. The text says they walked backward and covered their father.
They bring the chassidim, the covering of mercy and balance. They restore the screen that Noah had lost. They understand that in this world post-fall, you simply cannot look at the essence nakedly. You need a garment. You need a covering.
It strikes me that their action walking backward to avoid looking is exactly the same instruction given for the rainbow.
That is a brilliant connection, yes. The rainbow warns us, don't look at the naked machinery of God. Shem and Japheth understood this instinctively. Don't look at the naked failure of the foundation. You must respect the boundary. You have to cloak the divine in a vessel.
And the Zohar suggests that this singular moment in the tent basically set the trajectory for all of human history, right? I mean, we aren't just talking about family drama here. We're talking about geopolitics.
It did. Source 13 in Vayechi and Source 28 in Shemini make this clear. The children's children of these three sons represent the unfolding of the lower Sephirot Netzach, Had, and Yesod into the nations of the world. The dynamic between the nations, the wars, the tension between the West, often associated with Rome or Japheth, and the East, it all roots back to this failure of synthesis in Noah's tent.
It's amazing to think that the Zohar views Genesis 9 not as a fresh start, but as a failed correction.
It is an incomplete correction. Noah stabilized the world. He is the foundation, after all. But he couldn't elevate it back to the Garden of Eden. He couldn't fix the fruit. He couldn't hold the wine.
So we have the rainbow as a permanent witness. It's a mix of colors, green, red, white, that guarantees the world won't be destroyed by pure judgment again. But it also warns us, don't look too close.
Exactly. It guarantees survival, but not perfection. Perfection is still the work that needs to be done. It's waiting for us.
This brings up such an interesting question for us listening to this today. If Noah, who the Torah explicitly calls a righteous man, couldn't handle the intense left energy of the wine without getting drunk, without getting blown out. What does that mean for us?
It's a major cautionary tale about spiritual ambition. We live in an age where everyone wants the download. We want the deep secrets, the intense experiences, the wine of spirituality. We want to bypass the discipline and go straight to the ecstasy.
We want the light without the lamp.
But if you drink that wine without the proper vessel, without the capacity to hold it, you end up uncovered. You end up exposed and spiritually sloppy. You might think you're achieving enlightenment, but you might just be replicating Noah's drunkenness.
You end up creating chaos instead of holiness.
Precisely. Noah's lesson is that we need to build the vessel before we pour the wine. We need the garment of Shem, the kindness, the discipline, the humility, before we try to access the raw wisdom of the left.
So the next time you see a rainbow, don't just think about the physics of light or the promise of no more rain. Think about the Shekhinah wearing the armor of the patriarchs, holding back the flood, waiting for us to build a vessel strong enough to actually hold the light.
And maybe look away, just for a moment. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the power that's hanging there in the sky.
That is a lot to chew on. As always, the Zohar turns the simple into the profound. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
Catch you on the next deep dive. Sound disappears, but the wisdom contained within remains as light. Today's deep dive ends here. Producer Talmud K, and we will see you next time with deeper insights. Peace be with you all.
Peace be with you all.